there to share the wealth in that regard.
Boston was pushed out. 7 to shoot. Boston methodical on her take. After they had fallen behind by 6 in the quarter, then Sydney Colson, as Aliyah Boston has an extended conversation with the officials, and then is gonna get over to Angel Gray. Angel?
Aliyah Boston walked off the court, fists clenched, jaw tight, and for once, words weren't needed. The frustration was written all over her face. Indiana had clawed their way back from 17 points down. No Caitlin Clark, no Sydney Colson, no Aari McDonald. Their entire point guard depth chart was wiped clean, but somehow, they still had the game in their hands. And then, in one chaotic, heartbreaking final possession, they lost it. No timeout, a rushed shot, a whistle that left fans furious. The coach later admitted she should have called it sooner. But this wasn't just a tough loss. It was a collapse, built on weeks of adversity, made worse by calls that left even the broadcasters speechless. Before we break it all down, drop your take in the comments. Was this a coaching failure, a ref's disaster, or something deeper? And hit that subscribe button so you don't miss what's next. Because if you really want to understand what happened here, we need to rewind to the moment that set this all in motion.
7-0 Indiana run. They're within 2 and a foul. This time, Peckers does get the call.
I thought this might have been an offensive foul. Howard for the finish.
Indiana's considering challenging this call, but they will not, as Peckers gets free.
This wasn't supposed to happen. Not like this.
It's never fun to lose. I thought we got a pretty good look out of it. But again, I think, we shouldn't have been in that position to begin with. The 17 turnovers got us there. So yeah, we shouldn't have even been there. But I thought, Kelsey got a look at it. It's unfortunate, but yeah, on to the next.
Down 17 points to a physical, gritty Dallas team, the Fever had every excuse to pack it in. 3 of their floor generals, gone. No chemistry, no control, no stability. And yet, with 2 minutes left, the Fever had erased the gap. They had momentum, energy, and a crowd ready to explode. Then came the final possession. Indiana gets the stop, the clock's ticking. 11.7 seconds left, they've got 1 timeout, and they don't use it. Instead, Kelsey Mitchell pushes the ball up court, hunted by defenders. She pulls up for a contested jumper. It rims out. The buzzer sounds. Game over. 1 point loss. Head coach Stephanie White later said, "I probably should have used the timeout at the 3-second mark. That hesitation, that single second too late, cost Indiana a clean shot, maybe even the win." But as brutal as that ending was, it didn't tell the whole story. Because what brought Indiana to that point was a nightmare that started days earlier. One that flipped their entire season upside down. And when you lose 3-point guards in 1 week, you're not just playing shorthanded, you're playing a different game entirely.
What's the reaction been from you guys, the players, the coaches, to losing Sid and Aari?
Yeah, first and foremost, just brokenhearted for them. They're 2 really good people that you hate to see this happen to. They've been an integral part of what we've been doing, and so hate it for them. Unfortunately, it's part of the deal, and we've got to roll with it. And we've got players in that locker room who believe in one another, players in that locker room who are as competitive as all get out. We've got versatility, and it's going to have to be on full display. So I think now it's about playing to honor them. Right, and playing for them.
No team prepares for a scenario like this. You can game plan for injuries, adjust for matchups, even shift rotations when things get tough. But what happened to Indiana wasn't just bad luck. It was a complete collapse of their backcourt in a single night. It started in Phoenix. In one brutal sequence, Sydney Colson tore her left ACL and Aari McDonald fractured a bone in her right foot. Just like that, both were out for the season. No second chances, no slow returns. Just a total blackout of Indiana's floor leadership. And this wasn't just about 2 players going down. Colson and McDonald weren't bench warmers. They were the engine of the Fever offense. The ones who controlled tempo, directed traffic, absorbed full court pressure, and made sure Indiana's offense didn't unravel under stress. Now, there was no one to initiate, no one to settle the half-court sets, no point guards left at all. Oh, and if that wasn't enough, Caitlin Clark was already out with a groin injury. That made 3. "We're brokenhearted for them," Coach White said after the news broke. "But now it's about playing to honor them." They didn't just lose players, they lost structure. The ripple effect was instant. Turnovers started piling up. Entry passes got risky. Pressures that would have been broken with a simple outlet suddenly turned into steals and fast breaks. And there was no backup plan, because the entire system was built around those 3. That Phoenix game wasn't just the end of a night, it was the start of a storm. If you think Indiana's bad luck hit harder than most teams could survive, smash that like button. We're just getting to the part where the real pressure kicked in.
It's just excited. I mean, I know that Indiana is a great organization, and just to be a part of it and just to be here with the great players that I'm going to be playing with, I mean, this is a great opportunity. I'm just happy to be here.
What's the most important thing for you in a situation like this to just get acclimated, just to kind of get your feet under you and feel your way around the new spot here?
I mean, it's not my first time just coming to a new team and coming in and just being me. The biggest thing is just doing what I do best. Playing defense, playing hard, doing whatever the team needs. Obviously, I know they've been down with the injuries. Prayers up for Sid and Aari. Love them both. But like I said, I'm excited to be here, and I'm not going to do too much. But whatever coach tells me to do is what I'm going to do and have fun and enjoy my teammates.
Up next, the scorer who was never supposed to be the point guard, and what happened when she had to do it all anyway. Kelsey Mitchell didn't ask for this. She's not a traditional point guard. She's not built to run an offense, dissect defenses, or break down traps possession after possession. What she is a walking bucket, a pure scorer, the kind of player who moves off ball, catches in rhythm, and punishes defenses from every angle. But when all 3 of Indiana's point guards went down, there was no other option. Mitchell was thrown into the fire, not just to score, but to control the game. Against Dallas, every single possession started in her hands. She wasn't just bringing the ball up. She was facing full court traps, blitzes off screens, and help defenders waiting at every level. And somehow, she still dropped 24 points, hitting 4 of 7 from deep, grabbing 6 boards, and keeping the Fever within striking distance until the final buzzer. But the box score doesn't tell the full story, because behind every stat line was a battle, mentally, physically, emotionally.
Every single playoff game will be on our networks as Mitchell finally gets a look. Her first points of the second half. Curl it in. Doesn't get the whistle. Indiana with numbers the other way. Mitchell in the corner. Connect. Big game from Aisha Hines-Allen off the bench. Mitchell sprints into the lane, finds Cunningham. She got it. On a 3, and it's a single-digit deficit.
Mitchell had to wear every hat at once. She was the floor general, the scorer, the leader, the problem solver, and she did it all while facing a Dallas defense that built their game plan around exhausting her. Every time she broke a press, she had to reset and create. Every shot she made was followed by another gauntlet just to get back into position. Still, she refused to fold.
Mitchell trying to create with 5 to shoot. Mitchell through the lane. Now to scoop it in. And it's a 1 game.
Arch right, but you know she loves to go left. How many defenders try to come over and help about 3 and still able to scoop it up and in?
Mitchell with 24 points.
In the fourth quarter, down double digits, Mitchell drilled a deep 3 from way beyond the arc, then motioned to her teammates to tighten up defensively. Moments later, she ran a surgical pick and roll with Aliyah Boston, threading the perfect pass for a clean finish. Those weren't just plays, they were statements. Leadership under pressure when it mattered most.
Mitchell trying to create with 5 to shoot. Mitchell through the lane, able to scoop it in. And it's a 1 game. Indiana ball down 1.7 to go. Cunningham has to get it in. Mitchell in the corner, can hit, and Dallas hangs on. 81-80 the final as the Wings win a thriller in Indy.
But for every made shot, there was a cost. The energy it took, the risk of every possession, the responsibility of knowing if you don't make it happen, nobody will. And here's the truth no one wants to say out loud. This isn't sustainable. One player should never have to do it all, no matter how good they are. Coming up, the players who refuse to let it end there, and the unsung heroes who changed the entire momentum of the game. Kelsey Mitchell was the engine. But she wasn't driving alone. When Indiana looked like they were about to break under the weight of pressure, it was the unsung heroes, the role players, who refused to let it happen. Let's start with Sophie Cunningham. Every shot she took was laced with fire. 14 points, 5 of 10 shooting, and 2 massive threes that dragged the Fever back into striking range. But stats only tell half the story. Sophie played angry, diving for loose balls, jawing after contact, and throwing her entire body into every play. She crossed a line with the refs, sure, even drew a flagrant and later apologized, but in the thick of it, that edge kept Indiana alive. Then came Chloe Bibby, 12 minutes. That's all she played, but she dropped 11 points, drilling all 3 of her threes, including a momentum-destroying bomb when Dallas looked ready to pull away. That one shot, it forced a timeout the Wings didn't want to burn, giving Indiana a breather and flipping the rhythm.
Gets it back, 4 to shoot. Cunningham into the corner, Bibby again. Chloe Bibby breathing life into Indiana. A 19-0 Dallas run. Bibby buries the 3, and just like in the first half.
Bibby buries the 3, the announcers called. And in that moment, the Fever weren't folding. They were climbing. Down low, it was Natasha Howard setting the tone. A 12-point, 12-rebound double-double, 3 blocks, and a defensive presence that made Dallas earn every single layup. She erased second-chance points, clogged the paint, and gave Indiana something they desperately needed, a reliable anchor inside. And then there was Aliyah Boston, the one taking hits every time she touched the ball. She scored 14, but the real story was the brutality she endured under the rim. Double teams, body checks, arms wrapped around her, and still, she fought through it all.
Here's Cunningham. Off to Boston. Boston turns the corner, spinning inside and laying it in.
Her post touches didn't just put points on the board, they stopped Dallas runs cold. Don't overlook Lexi Hull either. She didn't score, didn't grab headlines, but she hounded Paige Buchers all game, chased over screens, disrupted rhythm, denied the easy looks. It wasn't glamorous, but without Hull's defensive lockdowns, Dallas might have run away with this. This wasn't one player going nuclear. It was 5 players doing the exact thing the moment demanded. Indiana outscored Dallas 25-4 in the 4th quarter. That's not a stat, that's a message. They came back with nothing but grit, hustle, and a refusal to let injuries, fatigue, or frustration define them.
Chloe, you were on the floor during that late third stretch when the Wings went on that run. What did you see that went sideways for you guys in that stretch?
We were just turning over the ball. I mean, yeah, as I said, the 17 turnovers, and I think we just didn't match their physicality, and, you know, we needed to clean it up, and I think that's what happened in the 4th when the girls come in and they really looked after the ball and, you know, shared the ball in offensively, and I think that's how we got into more of a groove. It really started defensively, and in that 3rd, we just let it slide. They had way too many, you know, points off our turnovers.
But just when it looked like a comeback for the ages, the final 11 seconds told a very different story. This was the moment. Indiana had done the impossible, climbed out of a 17-point hole with no true point guard, outworked a bigger, healthier Dallas team, and now they were right there. They got the stop, the rebound, 11.7 seconds on the clock, down 1. They had a timeout, they had momentum, they had one chance to draw up the perfect play, and they didn't call it. Instead, the Fever pushed the ball in transition. Kelsey Mitchell, already drained from carrying the offense all night, took it herself. A quick crossover, a contested jumper, it missed. Dallas grabbed the rebound. Game over.
So I wanted us to outlet and attack in transition. When it got to the point where we didn't attack and we just started dribbling sideways, you know, I probably should have used it at the 3-second mark instead of a little bit later. I thought Kels might have had a baseline drive, you know, that she ended up coming back to the middle, and so I didn't like that. But I did want us to push in transition with a low clock and, you know, limited opportunity.
Stephanie White called timeout, but by then, 1.7 seconds were all that remained. Too little, too late. No time to draw up anything real. No second shot at redemption, and after the game, she owned it. I probably should have used it at the 3-second mark. It was a rare, honest admission, and it hit like a gut punch. Not because she said it, but because she was right. That one pause, that one hesitation. It cost Indiana a clean look, a possible game winner, and maybe, depending how the standings shake out, a shot at playoff positioning they desperately needed. But the clock wasn't the only thing that robbed them. Because what happened with the officiating? That lit a fuse that still hasn't burned out. If the final possession hurt, what happened before it downright infuriated the Fever? Because the fourth quarter didn't just come down to execution. It came down to officiating, inconsistent, game-shifting, momentum-breaking officiating. And Indiana had seen enough. The most controversial moment, Aliyah Boston battling for position under the basket. She gets clamped, literally, by Dallas's center. Her arm was pinned down. She couldn't even raise it. And the call? Offensive foul on Boston. You heard that right. The player who got grabbed was the one who got hit with the whistle.
You could overturn it to an offensive foul. You could also maintain that it's a foul, but take away the continuation. All of those things could happen here on this call.
The interesting thing is, when you get to this point of the play, it is a foul on Boston. But it's because her arm was clamped earlier in the play.
I mean, look at that.
Like, what can she do to him?
She literally can do nothing. I don't know how that's not overturned to an offensive foul.
I agree with you.
That looks about as clear as it gets. And you saw how quickly Stephanie White challenged that.
The Fever immediately challenged it and lost. The call stood. Review confirmed it. Broadcasters were stunned. ESPN analyst Rebecca Lobo flat out said she expected it to be overturned.
After review, we have no illegal conduct by Euro, so the call will stand as confirmed. This will be also. Indiana will lose their challenge as well as their timeout. One shot for Euro. Thank you.
That's stunning to me. I mean, Aliyah Boston, look at her. Lee puts her one hand down and then pins Boston down with her other arm.
I gotta say, Rebecca, I'm sure we'll get an explanation from Sue Blau at some point soon.
She literally can do nothing, the announcer said, watching the replay. I don't know how that's not overturned. And it wasn't just that one play. Moments later, Sophie Cunningham was called for a flagrant foul on a closeout against Paige Buchers. Even though just minutes earlier, Buchers had committed a near-identical foul and wasn't upgraded. Then Kelsey Mitchell, who had been mauled all game, got no call after taking hard contact on a jump shot. At that point, Coach Stephanie White had enough. Kelsey is held or chucked on every freaking possession and never gets a call, she told the media. Aliyah Boston is the worst officiated post player in the league. Those weren't heat-of-the-moment rants. That was a coach going on record, calling out a standard her players have been fighting against all season long. And the frustration? It was visible, tangible. Sophie Cunningham, after being shoved by Buechers, yelled, "Go damn it," as she walked away from the officials. She later apologized publicly, but the emotion was real, a boiling point. Even Caitlin Clark, still sidelined with injury, joined the silent protest. After the final whistle, she clapped hard in the direction of referee Amy Bonner. No words, just cold, calculated frustration. A visual middle finger to the way the night was handled. And in one heated moment between Stephanie White and the refs, it was Aliyah Boston, normally calm, composed, who stepped in, visibly upset, trying to defend her coach before Clark physically reached out to calm her down. This wasn't just another bad whistle, this was a pattern, and the players knew it. But if the refs set the fire, it was Boston's post-game words that poured gasoline on it. "We need better focus," she said. Just 4 words, but they hit hard. Some took it as a call for accountability. We need to focus more. Others saw it as a quiet jab. If the officiating was better, this game wouldn't have slipped away. Either way, it said everything that needed to be said without saying much at all. And yet, even through the chaos, even through the heartbreak, Indiana wasn't done, because what came next would define whether this team folds or fights. By the time the final whistle blew, it wasn't just about the scoreboard anymore.
I mean, I think it was a physical game. You know, I think there's a double standard in how people get their calls. I think Kelsey Mitchell, number one, is held or chucked on every freaking possession and never gets a call off the ball. I think Aliyah Boston is the worst officiated post player in the league. She never gets a call. And you know, there's a double standard there, certainly. But you know, again, if it's going to be physical and you're gonna allow us to be physical, then allow both teams to be physical. If you're going to call the holds and you're going to call the chucks, and you're going to then call it both ways. So I mean, I think that we've been pretty consistent in what we're asking for, and I didn't feel like it was consistent, especially for those two. I think you could call a foul every time down the floor for those two.
The Fever weren't just tired. They were frustrated, furious, and emotionally drained. You could see it in their body language, hear it in their voices. It was no longer just a game. It was a battle between control and chaos. Sophie Cunningham hit her limit first.
Paige Becker putting her hands on Sophie to shove her up. You see Sophie's hand in the air. Both hands are in the air right here. And Paige Becker's is shoving. She is shoving her clean off. Boom. Pushed her right into Howard. Pushed her into Howard. Now she's wide open and waiting for a pass like she just didn't do anything. Like she just didn't do anything. Wide open down here. Look at her. And then all of a sudden you get the whistle. And look at the ref. You see the ref? You see the ref right here. Calling the foul. And guess who the foul was on? Sophie Cunningham.
After a hard shove from Paige Buchers, the kind that would have drawn a whistle for anyone else, she stumbled into a teammate and let out a sharp, unfiltered, "God damn it!" Her jaw clenched, her eyes locked on the referee. She walked away before things got worse. And later, she owned it, apologized, but also stood by her point that there was a clear double standard all game. Then came Aliyah Boston. Usually calm, stoic, a presence of power. This time, she was visibly shaken. After another questionable no call late in the fourth, she walked straight to the officials, jawing, not out of ego, but out of pure disbelief. The emotion boiled over. Stephanie White stepped in to defend her star. That sparked its own heated exchange, until Caitlin Clark stood up from the bench, reached out, and literally grabbed her coach's arm to cool things down. Think about that. Clark wasn't even playing. But the tension was so thick, so emotionally charged, that even she couldn't sit still. And then there was the ending. The moment the buzzer sounded, Caitlin walked toward the refs, hands together, and clapped slowly. Hard, deliberate, right in their direction. Not a single word, but it said everything. This wasn't just about calls. It was about respect, about fairness, about fighting like hell for 39 minutes and 59 seconds, only to have the last second stolen. And still, they showed up. They stayed together. They didn't quit. Aliyah's post-game statement was quiet, just 4 words: "We need better focus." But in that silence, you could feel the weight of it, because it wasn't just about them. It was about everything. And as brutal as the loss was, one question still lingered: what happens now? The loss dropped Indiana to 18-15, pushing them to 6th in the standings and tightening an already brutal playoff race.
Like, was so clunky or disjointed on that end of the floor?
I think it got better as the game went on, but I think just starting, I think the physicality level was a little bit different on both sides of the ball, and but for us, really, I think it's got to be our focus. Like, we got to make sure that we're connected on that end, making sure that we're in the right places for passes, and just being more conscious of us having that ball.
They were supposed to cruise past Dallas, a bottom 3 team more focused on the next draft than the next round. Instead, they got ambushed, outmuscled, and outcalled. And even then, they still had a shot to win. But this isn't just about a single game anymore. This is about what happens next. Caitlin Clark is still rehabbing. She's expected back in a few weeks, but the schedule won't wait. Every missed opportunity, every blown possession, every late game collapse now matters more than ever. One loss could be the difference between a first-round upset and a first-round exit. And the pressure, it's not just on the players. Stephanie White, the coach who's held this team together through injuries, rotations, and media storms, is feeling the heat. Some fans are already calling for her job. They say this team is too talented to be dropping games like this. But others, they see the grit, the fight, the pieces falling into place, and they're not ready to give up yet. Because here's the truth. This Fever team, they've already proven they can scrap, that they can climb, that they can take the worst hand imaginable. 3-point guards down, rotation shredded, officiating stacked against them, and still be right there with a shot to win. The question is, can they finish? Can they tighten the execution? Can they rise above the whistles? Can they stop letting almost be the headline? Because at some point, the excuses expire, and what's left is the fight. They've got the talent, they've got the hunger, they've got the support. What they need now is the result. So what's your take? Should Stephanie White have called that timeout earlier? Was the officiating a one-night disaster, or a sign of a bigger problem in the league? Drop your thoughts below. Let's talk about it. And if you haven't already, like, subscribe, and turn on all notifications, because if this team gets healthy and locked in, we might be watching something wild take shape. Click the next video on screen, and we'll see you there.